This episode is brought to you by Dogfish Head Craft Brewery. The Grateful Dead and Dogfish Head have gotten the band back together with the release of Grateful Dead Juicy Pale Ale, a light-bodied pale ale brewed with sustainable kernels of grains, granola, and heaps of good karma for a refreshing brew that's music to your taste buds. Available nationwide, visit dogfish.com to find Grateful Dead Juicy Pale Ale in your neck of the woods. Dogfish Head Craft Brewery is located in Milton, Delaware. Please drink responsibly.
We see you getting after your fitness goals. But what about those money goals? You can count on Credit Karma for a clear view of your finances and your progress, helping you see results so you can keep checking off those financial personal bests and find your way to money. Progress never felt so good. Download the Intuit Credit Karma app and start achieving your money goals today. Intuit Credit Karma. Karma you can count on.
A lot of our music, of our popular music is based upon how high you jump and how funny your hat is and what colour your shoes are rather than upon, any sort of soul yearning.
But initially, don't you feel that you need this kind of adulation from an audience to help you inject further greatness in your particular art?
Definitely. I mean, it's all, I think, not only in music and audiences. I mean, everything is action-reaction. I think it's in any job, really, it's the same for you, it's the same for the people who could be listening to the show. Whatever they do in their life, if they do something and don't get any response to it, then it doesn't help them to do it again better. So I mean, from a performer's point of view, it is a matter of there's a point where the audience don't matter. It doesn't matter whether the people are there or not. But obviously, if you get to a point where the audience are there, then you want them to enjoy it and you want them to respond in a way which will uplift you so that you can do it better for them, so that they'll respond even better, that you can respond better. But it's all give and take.
Hello and welcome to episode 269 of Something About the Beatles podcast. This one sets out to focus on the post-Beatles music of George during the 70s, tying as it does to a book by my guest today called George Harrison in the 70s. Eoghan Lyng, a writer, journalist from Ireland. And this isn't necessarily all about promoting a book or even necessarily talking about George's music through the 70s per se, because oftentimes on the show, as you know, it's hard to stay coloring within the lines. But it's mostly what we focus on, particularly the point being maybe shedding a little light on some of the releases that have either gotten a bad rep through the years or not really fully the attention they should have gotten. Because honestly, I don't think George ever made a bad record, and plenty of people seem to think otherwise. But there's plenty to look for if you're willing to open your ears and open your mind and not be burned with expectations as to what a George Harrison record should sound like. So hopefully this conversation will loosen things up a little bit among the listeners to give some things a second listen. And I do believe that the Apple Years box set covering most of his 70s output is no longer in print, which is a shame. I would imagine most of that music, if not all of it's available as a download, but the physical media might not be available. And that's just the nature of things. You have to snap them up as they come along. But I don't think it's that hard really to find this stuff if you're really serious about looking for it. So there's that. And the elephant in George Harrison's room these days is the new bio just out by Philip Norman. Now, some of you longtime listeners might recall the conversation I had with Mr. Norman back when his bio of Paul came out. Now, full context on Philip Norman, as you know, wrote Shout, published in 1981. It filled the space as an in-depth, all-encompassing Beatle bio, which is not to say it is necessarily either stood up to the test of time, to where the scholarship is now, or even then, with people taking exception to his characterization of John Lennon as 75% of the Beatles. And then there was his slagging off of Paul and Wings throughout the 70s prior to writing that book, and even less esteem for George and Ringo. You may recall him saying on this very podcast, back on the occasion of Paul's book being published, that he would never do a book on George or Ringo. And here it is, 2023. What do we have? A book on George. Now, I am not personally against anybody getting a second chance or redemption. I know there's a lot of people out there of the opinion that I should not be giving this book or this man any oxygen. But I beg to differ. I'm willing to hear people out. I think people are allowed to evolve. And I think that it would be a worthwhile conversation to have, to hear what he has to say for himself at this point. It seems he did not listen to that show once it was dropped. Otherwise, things might be different now. But in any event, and we also know the obit he penned in 2001 when George died, that certainly put him in a Dave Dexter category in terms of fan enmity, along the lines of dancing on someone's grave when they died. So that's something I know he has since issued his mea culpa for. You may have seen that Guardian piece that was just published. He certainly did himself no favors going after fellow rock journalists Greil Marcus and Peter Guralnick. Things like that. I operate the show on a basis of give the guest enough rope to hang themselves with. And if you're intent on doing so, I can't stop you. So when Norman makes pronouncements like that publicly, he's certainly not enhancing his own reputation, and he's just sort of adding fuel to the fire that already exists out there. But there are some people that don't operate with the level of self-awareness that we'd expect of them. In any event, that's out there, the George bio, but we, in this conversation, Owen and I, focus on George's music, and not so much the biographical details. That's for another day. Also, this show reaches you just as the last Beatle track, Now and Then, is set to reach the public. So we will be doing something on that, get some maybe instant reaction from some Satby guests. So that's in the works. I'm not sure how soon that will happen, but I definitely want to catch the opinions of people whose opinions I respect, that you've heard on the show before and presumably feel the same way, their take on that. And last thing I want to say is that you're aware from the Olympiad shows and other shows, Gary Wenstrup, good friend of the show, and a Beatle guy that, like myself, he's a few years older than me, but he has the fandom that came along, not quite first-generation Beatle fan, but old enough to be interested, curious, and wanting to check out the literature as it came along. So we'd been talking sometime about doing, I don't know if I'd go so far as to call it a Beatle book club, but maybe something where we put the word out that we want to focus attention on a particular Beatle book and get input from you guys, questions, comments, and incorporate them into the show. And it so happens that in the pipeline now is the lovely Aaron Weber. We have a podcast episode that we've taped in the can, the next in line, I think. And we'd started that at the Fest for Beatle Fans back in August live in front of an audience. And mentioned in the context of our conversation was the book that came out originally, 1975, The Beatles, An Illustrated Record by Tony Tyler and Roy Carr, journalists from New Musical Express. So Gary and I decided that we would like to do a show dedicated to that book, seeing as how, in our estimation, it was very influential on a particular generation or group of Beatle fans when it was published. I don't know, because I haven't really talked to too many fans in England at the time, and these being English guys, and it was published in England, that would have read it then and were influenced by it, or at least had a reaction to it. So if you are a fan in England, or around the 70s when this book was published, we'd love to get your input, as well as anybody else, anywhere else in the world who read this book. Give us your thoughts. You can send them to satb2010, that's satb2010 at gmail.com. And we will incorporate them into the show that we're hoping to tape probably end of year after the holidays, something around then. So you got a bit of time to get that together. Meanwhile, Now and Then, we have that coming very, very soon. And our conversation, my conversation with Owen today on George. You've got the Reluctant Beatle lurking down the road as well. So keep an eye out for that. But now, George.
I've been listening to your show since I was 22, 23, and I'm basically 30, so this is really nice to be on the show.
Wow. Anyway, your book is called, for anybody looking for it?
A very simple title, George Harrison in the 1970s. So it's part of a series Sonic Bond, the publisher, have where they look at an artist during a decade. It was actually Adrian Sinclair of McCartney Legacy fame who helped inspire. He suggested I write a book about George, so I'm going to say thank you to him on air.
That's great. That's a great stamp of approval. And to anybody within the sound of my voice who thinks there was somebody that said that I gave faint praise to McCartney Legacy, it ain't so, folks. Love it. Go buy it. It's fantastic.
Yes, it's it was one of the thrills of my life to see my name in the acknowledgement section.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah, they referenced my interview with Kevin Rowland, who I mentioned earlier, so that was also a really cool thing.
Oh, wow. Who would have saw that coming? If I see my name quoted, it's usually they call me Richard or they misspell it.
Oh, I'm sorry. For some reason, Kevin Rowland and I talked about Give Ireland Back to the Irish. He was like, oh, fucking right of McCartney to release that, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yes. I think I was the first person to get Kevin Rowland to talk about that song, so that was very flattering.
You get him to talk about Luck of the Irish?
Oh, he mentioned it briefly as well. For those who don't know, Kevin Rowland is effectively Irish. His parents were Irish. He was either born in Ireland or he moved to Ireland as a child, but he grew up in England. So he spent his whole life trying to tell people, I'm not English, I'm Irish.
That reminds me of Maureen O'Hara.
Yes, that thing. Or, yeah, there's a lot of people like that. And Mike McCartney is also someone who thinks he's more Irish than English.
That's true.
Yep.
George, as this guy that's developing and flourishing really quickly within the Beatles, but then so did they as well.
Yeah.
It's just an amazing thing to think about where he began. Even a Don't Bother Me is a pretty sophisticated tune for somebody's first contribution to songwriting. I think about Mickey Dolenz and Randy Scouse Git on Headquarters. That's the first song he wrote. It's like, my God, what an amazing thing. It happens sometimes. But
for sure.
There's a perception, I think, out there that All Things Must Pass is it.
Yeah.
And everything after that was diminishing returns.
No.
Or maybe he should have saved half that material for future albums.
No.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's total nonsense. There are days I prefer the Living in the Material World album to All Things Must Pass. I think that might be his truest album because it's so stripped back and it's so soulful and it's all about the lyrics and the meaning and it's all about the aphorism. And I mean, Give Me Love is probably the best thing he ever wrote. I'm just going to say that out there. No, I wouldn't say it's diminishing returns. But then again, what do I know? I think Cloud 9 is his worst work.
Obviously, that was the one that really put him back in the game, reestablished him, set the table for the Wilburys. Yeah. And obviously sold a ton, and he had all the commercial validation you could wish for coming after a relative drought. Yeah. But I think the songs mostly are fine, but I find the production really unlistenable. Oh, God. And that's the thing that kind of tanks it for me.
Yeah. Oh, massively. All that Jeff Lynne stuff. I think George Harrison was a little critical of Jeff Lynne's production when he was asked would he work with Jeff Lynne in the future. He said, I don't want them turning into ELO records. That was around the time he started off on Brainwashed. And Jeff Lynne writes in the liner notes, I think I made them a bit too posh, something to that regard.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And that was after the anthology recordings?
I think that was around the time he started what became the Brainwashed album. So was that in 97?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe around that time he started to get a bit tired of the whole Jeff Lynne, or maybe he was tired of the association with Jeff Lynne or just wanted something different and then just had a grumpy day and said, no, I don't want them turning into ELO records.
And with all due respect to ELO records, depending on your taste, he's not a man without talent, but I always thought it was my fantasy at one point when George had hitched his wagon to Warner Brothers, and then Fleetwood Mac, the revamped edition, which I know is not everybody's cup of tea, but you cannot deny the talent of a Lindsey Buckingham. No. Two guys with pop sensibilities and great guitar hounds. Yeah. If those two had collaborated, what that might have sounded like.
You can go your own way. Oh no, that's not it.
Yeah, you got me there. I think that's a very. I don't know if the egos would have allowed for that. I think George worked well with some people, didn't work well with others.
That's true.
Yeah, he could work well with Clapton, and the next day he doesn't want Clapton on the album. I mean, Clapton isn't on the Living in the Material World album, despite being all over the All Things Must Pass album. Maybe after working with Jeff Lynne on 2 Traveling Wilburys albums, that was enough for him, and maybe he just needed to do his own thing. It strikes me that George could be quite changeable, like a lot of artists. It seems to me that McCartney could be quite like that as well. Once Nigel Godrich is getting a lot of credit for Chaos and Creation, he never gets asked back to produce another McCartney album.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Some people would point to the Gemini dualism, but there's the same thing with the Pisces fish going in opposite directions as well.
I don't really know about star signs. I've got long hair like a lot of Leos. That's as far as it goes.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, is there something you think that's particularly singular about the songs and All Things Must Pass in terms of the headspace he's in when he's writing them that isn't really followed on for the duration of his career? Or do you think that there's enough singular George identity that you can spot something on Cloud Nine as, yeah, that's the same guy that wrote some of those songs when All Things Must Pass? Because the thesis that some people put forth, and I'm not sure where I fall on this, is that if you listen to the songs they did on their first few albums after the split, where they were composed while still under the influence of being in the Beatles, that they're of a different sort of cloth than the stuff that once that power dissipated. What do you think?
I'm not sure I'd agree with that, because I think the only album he released that didn't have some sort of spiritual apotheosis is the Extra Texture album. Everything else has some sort of link to spiritualism or journey or discovery. Even on This Is Love, he's talking about embracing change, embracing within. And Fish on the Sand is another song that is about, embracing change and survival. And it's all about meditation and how we can overcome obstacles in our daily lives. It mightn't be quite as militant as it was in the first 3 George Harrison albums. I think after Dark Horse, you'll notice he does tone it back. We don't get the Lord loves the one that loves the Lord. God, that's a horrible title to say. We are not getting that kind of apostolizing. We're not getting those kind of heavy, haughty anthems. We're getting something that's a bit more, maybe spiritualism is a way forward.
Yeah, it's definitely more nuanced. And I wonder if it took the bad press and negative reaction to the Dark Horse tour for that revelation to come to him.
I think you might be onto something there. Yeah, it didn't do him any favors jumping up and down in Canada, where he said, "I'll die for God, but I won't die for rock and roll."
Yes.
Yes.
He refers to the audience with their dirty reefers. He of all people.
And then he changes the lyrics to "In my life, I love him more," as in pointing to God.
Yes. It's very punk in its way. Wrong audience, though.
You got to admire him for standing up for his convictions, but at this time around Europe, everyone wanted to disavow God. So, of course, John Lennon, with God as a concept, is their national hero, or their cult hero.
Right.
And Harrison with, his spiritual elegies at a time when, I'm speaking from Ireland. I mean, we've had our horrible history with Catholicism and Protestantism, as does Spain, with Catholicism and Franco, Italy. I'm not sure that would have been the right approach for a Europe that wanted to cast off the shackles of religion, to talk about how wonderful God is.
Yeah. It's interesting that in that period, 69, 70, 71, there's certainly a good measure of pop music that leans toward traditional religion.
Yes.
Things like Spirit in the Sky, Jesus Christ Superstar, Put Your Hand in the Hand, things like that. But as far as a mass audience, and maybe particularly receiving it from a Beatle, I'm not sure that they wanted to follow that en masse. And the hectoring tone, as you allude to, the Lord loves the one who loves the Lord, is not going to win you any friends.
No, absolutely not. Especially when the coolest Beatle is talking about how we are our own masters and not followers of God. When I say the coolest Beatle, I mean that was how Lennon was perceived in the countercultural presses.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Aided and abetted by Jan Wenner.
Probably, yeah. I mean, I should say to the audiences listening in that I veer more towards McCartney and Harrison than Lennon when it comes to solo materials.
You're allowed.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think that George's work, and you've written a whole book on his work in the 70s, dedicated to, I think, trying to get people to rehear it with fresh ears.
Thank you.
That even after the split, right out of the box, he's the artist that's been hiding in plain sight, gets all this attention, all this glory that he gets sustained through the Bangladesh show in August of 71. And then it kind of dissipates by the time Living in the Material World comes out. He still has a #1 in the States with that, but it's not a success on the same level. And I wonder if it's because the messaging coming from him at that point was a little too strident, with the Ohm packaging and all the blatantly proselytizing material, even when it's not. I had thought at one point that when he got all the validation that he did with All Things Must Pass, that was really what he was looking for in a way that he wasn't getting it from his bandmates.
Probably.
That he was a worthy artist producing worthy material.
Yeah.
The world gave that to him.
Yeah.
And once he got that, I don't see him being very interested in being a rock star.
No.
As much as doing music for himself that satisfies him. And if people like it, great. If they don't, that's all right too. Do you have any sense of that? Does that ring true in any way for you? Or do you have a different take?
Well, he said something to that effect in 1972, or was it 71, around that time, where he says, I couldn't care less if the world never heard from me again.
Mm-hmm.
He tended to hole himself up in his gigantic house. Have you seen it in London? It is massive.
I've not been to it. I've only seen pictures.
Yeah, and he's fairly reclusive, and I mean, he certainly wasn't rushing to make music videos, and he only did 2 tours in his life. I mean, that's nothing. So I don't think he was that particularly bothered about being a huge rock star. I think where if he'd wanted to pursue success, he would have worked things out with Phil Spector for a 3rd album, which would have been Living in the Material World, because they'd had 2 monster albums with All Things Must Pass and The Concert for Bangladesh, and they could have had another like gargantuan sounding, loud, guitar thrashing albums like the other 2 were. But instead he went for a very different approach, much subtler, much softer, and while the music is gorgeous, it probably was a case of him missing the ride to great success that he could have had around that time. McCartney comes around with Band on the Run, which is this kind of like stadium rocking anthem, and he kind of swoops the plaudits away. I think it's more of a choice he made than a mistake he made.
Oh, definitely, yeah. People characterize his judgment as mistaken when framed in commercial terms, but I don't know that he regretted anything he did necessarily, at least through the Material World.
Yeah.
Now, Dark Horse is a pretty unique situation, and if you look at it as, here's a guy that, he's an introvert in an extrovert's business. He doesn't terribly like performing live if he's the center stage. That, he's totally comfortable being a sideman.
Yeah.
And proved that at least going back to the Delaney and Bonnie days, late 69.
Yeah.
So to take on the burden he did at a time when his personal life is in complete upheaval, and he's not helping himself with the substances he's sustaining himself with, but I think that it might have been the side of George that wants to help other people. He's trying to launch Robbie in a very commercial way to a mainstream rock audience. And maybe he saw his putting out an album and going on tour, but bringing Robbie along as maybe he was willing to sacrifice himself, do something he wasn't really comfortable doing, just to bring Robbie to the masses by using his own cachet as an artist.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. That piece of music is from our new album on the Dark Horse record label, and it's, in a way, it's, we're all trying to liberate ourselves, and this is a piece of music from a ballet Rob has written, and I hope you all enjoyed it enough to go and get it. This song is also on the ballet, but it's a vocal number sung by Lakshmi Shankar here and Vijay Shankar on the other side. And the song is actually another love song, and it doesn't matter what you may call the Lord or God, whether you believe in him or not, but this song we call him Krishna, and it's called I'm Missing You. Krishna, where are you? And I hope you like it.
Does that make any sense?
Maybe, but he also loved playing with Robin Ford, and he loved playing with Billy Preston. You could see from the photographs of the time, I mean, I'm not Ken Michaels, I wasn't lucky enough to see George on that tour, but you can see photos of him and Billy Preston, and they've got the biggest smiles imaginable.
Yes.
They're having an absolute blast. So I suspect it was that. I think he underestimated the vocal demands of the tour. How many songs did he sing with the Beatles on stage? Was it only 1 or 2 per night? I mean, and now he's going for a full set list.
Yes. And his vocal cords are not the most robust of instruments to begin with.
No, I agree. I think back then people didn't know how to take care of their voices the way that they might do now. These days, Mick Jagger's not going to perform at the London Olympics because, he hasn't trained his voice. But people didn't do that at the time. I mean, and a lot of the artists have suffered the consequences because of it.
Sure.
And I think George perhaps underestimated the demands of the tour, Ringo was sensible enough in '89. I think he brought on some vocal coaches to help him, and he also brought on some other singers so that he only had to sing half the set.
Yes.
If George had done that, like he did that on Bangladesh, so I don't know why he didn't do this on this occasion. Maybe I think it was a case of underestimation and perhaps a bit of ego on his part.
Yeah, it could have been. I mean, he could have toured with Clapton at that point, although the Patty situation might have made it weird. But
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting. But there was a great quote from Jim Keltner, who was on that tour, of course. I can't remember the exact wording of it, but basically he was giving him props for bringing something fresh and unknown to the rock masses. And had he done it a few more times, he would have had it down.
Oh, yeah.
But it was something beautiful and unique. And that's what Keltner's takeaway was from it.
Yeah, I mean, he was about 10 years ahead of Paul Simon and Peter Gabriel. It was like the first example of world music on stage.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing to think about. Even John was like reporting being glad that he missed out on Ravi when he saw George in Nassau, because Ravi had taken ill and was missing some dates.
Yeah.
That he didn't have to sit there and be restless. But it was, I think, being a little bit ahead of the curve with his audiences that unfortunately did him in.
Yeah, well, George was happy to point that out in a couple of interviews as well, which might have been a bit haughty of him. But I mean, he was certainly burned out by the experiences. The fact of the matter is he only did one more tour in his life, and that was like a month-long tour in Japan.
Yeah. Clapton basically arm twisted him into, right?
I've heard that, yeah. And which is a shame, because those shows sounded really good.
Yeah, great receptive audience, and it's a George and Beatle fans' dream, the set list that they picked.
Yeah. I guess at the end of that tour, he also saw Paul McCartney and Wings perfecting the shapes and routines that you needed for a stadium show. And he probably thought, that's not for me. And which is a shame, because as you say, he could have reestablished and reformulated and got the formula down and had the first world music show.
And that's the thing, is that he undertakes this massive undertaking, launching a label, producing all these other artists and trying to get their material out there. The tour starts before his own album is even finished.
Yeah.
And it comes out a few dates into it. Who does that? But I guess he was locked into this treadmill. But he goes away, licks his wounds, writes the material. And I guess the situation for Extra Texture was they had studio time booked at A&M in L.A. for Splinter that ended up not being used. So he used it. So it's like 9 months after Dark Horse that he puts out Extra Texture, and they make this effort to sort of promote it as an upbeat, happy thing. And that dusted off track from Ronnie Spector, this happy Motown single, which really doesn't reflect the contents of the album at all. He sort of gets that out there, I don't know, to cleanse the palate or just clear the decks. But then the following year, when he gets it together after his bout with hepatitis and records 33 1/3, and by that time, as you say, he would have seen Wings on that tour. It's like, why didn't he tour on that album? It's a superb, upbeat, radio-friendly album. He clearly is in a much better place. I think that would have been the time to really make that happen.
I think you might be right, but clearly the demons of the Dark Horse tour were still there. And I don't really rate the 33 1/3 album, but I think the Extra Texture album is outstanding. I mean, You is a superb song. This guitar, the song with Larry Legg Smith, they're all fantastic songs. And and you mentioned, the happiness and the sadness, and there's a lot of yin and yang on that album. It's my second favorite George album.
And the first is Living?
Yeah, probably my first is Living, but I recognize that All Things Must Pass is the best.
Okay. So let's talk more about Extra Texture, because that is one alongside Dark Horse that gets a lot of abuse.
Yes.
I tried to listen to it with fresh ears after, I must admit, as a fan, when it came out, feeling a bit of disappointment that it was all so dreary and downbeat.
Yeah.
But it took me time in my taste to mature before I finally started to hear it with fresh ears.
Yeah.
And Midnight Blue, Tired of Midnight Blue, is a terrific song.
Outstanding.
And The Answer's at the End, which I thought sounded like it could be an All Things Must Pass outtake.
Yeah.
Is this another one that it's a nice sharing of his worldview and philosophy without coming off as preachy.
Yeah, well, I think that was inscribed on his garden wall.
Yeah.
It's in the book.
That Frankie Crisp stuff.
Yeah, it's in the book. I have it written down properly in the book, so I just don't have my notes with me right now.
Pay attention, folks.
The vocal is outstanding on that song. It might be the finest vocal of his career.
That's saying something.
Yeah. This guitar, he's embracing the Beatles. He's deliberately writing a sequel to the White Album classic. I have issues with the White Album arrangement. I don't like Eric Clapton's guitar. It's too heavy for me. This is much cleaner. It breathes much better. There's room for all the instruments to take their turns. The production is very, very good on the album. Every instrument, you can hear how things are being played, which might explain the new remaster of the All Things Must Pass album, which is much cleaner and you can hear every instrument.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
Do you like the synth bass on that track?
I do. I really do. Again, it might be George's way of saying I brought the synth to the Beatles because he was the one who brought the synth to the Beatles.
That is true.
Yes. There's a lot of keyboards. There's a lot of interesting melodies. The saxophone on You and Another Bit of You are just tremendous, so full of energy and emotion and soaring. Yeah, it's a real musician's album, and that's what George was. He was a musician before he was a singer-songwriter. I think he was happy enough with that.
It is interesting, the involvement of David Foster on that album, who, to that point, he was in the Canadian band Skylark, but I think the one hit they had, Wildflower, I don't think he's even on that song, but in any event, he gets connected with George. He's part of Attitudes.
Yeah.
And he's all over that album. He's the guy that made his name later on as being so uber commercial.
Yeah.
You know, the stuff he did with the band Chicago and other stuff that he produced, Boss Gag song, Look What You've Done to Me.
Yeah.
He's clearly a guy with a very commercial ear.
Yeah.
It's interesting that he's so involved in an album that I don't think too many George fans look at it as terribly commercial.
No.
So what do you think it is they're missing about that album overall? You pointed out the musicianship being superb, which I would say it is on every George album, but is there a particular prism they should view it through?
I think you should see it as a prism of a guy rebuilding himself. You know, he's had the disaster of the Dark Horse tour. He's recovering from his divorce, and he's recovering from the amount of drink and drugs he's doing. So he's weaning himself up. It's comparable, I think, to the Station to Station album, which was David Bowie rebuilding himself after what had been a particularly difficult time in his life. And we're privy to that change, that metamorphosis, that transformation. Both men were good enough to put it on record, which is ironic because I don't think Harrison rated David Bowie very much.
No.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Which I never understood that, since they both had, such spiritual convictions.
Yeah, it is interesting, but sometimes you have a disdain for people that are the most like you.
Yes. Yes. I know. Paul McCartney wasn't a big fan of Oasis, for one.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
To me, I was able to really let it get into my system by hearing it as a soul album. And it was the Smokey track that I think was the gateway for that. Yeah.
Yes, no, it's soul with a capital S.
Yes.
He's bearing his soul on the record.
There's that too.
Can't stop thinking about you.
Yeah, there's a lot of passion, and it's coming from a personal place, not the kind of passion he reserves for singing about God.
No, yeah. It's about his real life. It's about appreciating walking in his garden. It's about... There's that wonderful quote he gave where he talked about how he came back from the tour and he walked into his house and he nearly had a breakdown. That just shows how damaging that experience in the Dark Horse tour was for him. The only way he could recover from that was by rebuilding an album, which I think he was affected by the reviews because he said he did say that the Extra Texture album was the weakest album he'd produced at that point, which is a massive shame because it is so beautiful. Yeah,
you definitely do see that with John and Paul, that they tend to value things by their commercial success.
Why?
And John distancing himself from some time in New York City, which does have its fans.
Yeah.
Paul similarly disdaining Red Rose Speedway, and I wouldn't say right. Yeah, that just seems to be a measure common to all three main songwriting Beatles. Is that if it didn't do well commercially, well, I guess it was a mistake.
Yeah, which I can't understand that. One of my prized pieces was a piece I wrote for the AV Club comparing The Crown to The Godfather. Nobody read it, and I still think it's the best thing I've written.
Oh.
So I don't know why people put such value on this commercial value. Surely that makes it more precious that nobody enjoys it the way you do.
You're singing my song.
Yeah.
There are shows I've done that I thought, these will go through the roof. This is such incredible content. And nothing. And then other things I think are sort of tossed off as like, wow, I've got double the downloads of the show I expected it not to do, but anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It seems quite superficial to hang your hat on how well something does commercially.
Yes.
But so many artists. I heard a story that Terry Jones, after the failure of The Wind in the Willows, couldn't direct another film for 20 years. And it's like, why do you care? You're rich enough.
Right. What is that about?
Yeah.
You don't expect it out of people that are capable of producing such great art to be as lowly as us, toiling, in the fields and worrying about commercial success. Yeah. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't quite understand it. I mean, I can't imagine Leonard Cohen saying, "Oh, I didn't really like the Ladies Man album. It didn't sell very well."
Right.
Yeah, that was a terrible impression of Leonard Cohen. I'm sorry. I need a bottle of brandy and 10 cigars to do a good Leonard Cohen impression.
There you go. Yeah, you get closer to it.
Yeah.
Dark Horse is another one that was totally reamed. And I have to say that certainly for fans of my generation who were not there really for the 60s, but got into them during the 70s after they were split, and you're sort of backtracking and getting into the Beatles that way, the book by Roy Carr and Tony Tyler, Beatles Illustrated Record, carried an awful lot of sway because stuff we hadn't heard yet we would read about in that book. Yeah. And they were not kind to George. Yeah. And that was one that I remember the negative review they gave it in that book was so terrible that it took me a while to actually even buy the album. And when I finally did, it was like, okay, there's the voice. But it definitely grew on me to where I was like, wow, these are really good songs. Yeah. I could probably live without Bye Bye Love, but apart from that, the material is good, and once you get past his voice, the musicianship is superb. Yeah. But the songwriting is just aces on that album. And again, I kind of came to the view that maybe that was sort of his parallel to Walls and Bridges. Yes. Where it's this personal upheaval period that he's documenting for us.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd also add Chaos and Creation in the Backyard to that trilogy.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Even though that came much, much later, but of course that's about Paul McCartney's separation to Heather Mills.
Right, right.
No, I agree with you. Even the guitar playing, there's something jagged and raw about the guitar playing that we don't get on the other George Harrison tracks because they're much more controlled and stable. Yes. You listen to Simply Shady. I mean, that billowing, blistering opening hook. Mm-hmm.
That might be my favorite song in the album.
I think it's fantastic. I mean, and he's addressing his drinking and he's addressing his failings in life. And Dark Horse is another one where, he's talking about being underestimated in life. Mm-hmm. It's not quite as good as Blood on the Tracks, but it has a similar raw vibe to it that could have only come from such a raw place in his life. I think Dylan went through a divorce around the time of Blood on the Tracks as well.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. I mean, Jacob Dylan described it as conversations between his parents.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's that kind of like raw emotion we're feeling. You mentioned Bye Bye Love. I do like how he puts a cheeky dig at Patty and Clapton at the end of that.
It just makes you uncomfortable listening to it, but I guess I'd rather have it than not have it.
I think it's one of those things that everyone knows it, so you're just you might as well say it and address it, and that way everyone can move on.
That's a good point. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like Daniel Craig on the making of Casino Royale. He'd arrive on set with, headlines, James Blonde can't be Bond, and that way he says, now can we get back to work? Yeah.
I quite like the title track on that, but So Sad is another great track.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
He's almost wailing on that track. He sounds so wounded.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. It's almost painful to listen to, but, in a way, it's as raw as Plastic Ono Band, where if you know what's going on in his life, even if it didn't, just hearing the sound of his voice, it's like, wow.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
it's very affecting.
The only other track I can think of where he sounds as wounded is Run of the Mill, which of course is about the breakup of the Beatles. Mm. That is a track I point to when people say, "Oh, George was nonplussed about the breakup of the Beatles." Listen to Run on the Mill. I mean, this is a guy who's so close to tears on that track.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's the one that normally didn't tend to wear his emotions on his sleeve.
I don't care.
There's moments like that on Living in the Material World. I get that sense of emotion and drama from That Is All.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Sue You, Sue Me Blues, while it's a bit more garbled, there's a bit of emotion there.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
We're trying to make the focus of the show reasons for people to recheck out these albums, and I think we've done a decent job with those three. 33 and a Third, you said, is not one of your favorites. What is it that rubs you the wrong way about that one?
Without sounding too pretentious about it, it doesn't have a conceptual hook the way that the other albums do, especially the albums from the 70s. I mean, All Things Must Pass is, bolstered by an ambition to bring his voice to the forefront. Then he strips it all back to living in the material world to focus on the soul and the lyrics. And then he's got a divorce album with Dark Horse, which he's bringing onto the tour. And then he's rebuilding himself with Extra Texture. We get the George Harrison album, which is very much him as a father. It's him presenting his life as a father.
Yeah.
Whereas with 33 and a Third, it's just a collection of songs, some of them not very good.
Oh, that's interesting you say that. See,
Okay.
I've always loved that album because to me, it was the return of the fun George.
Okay.
Where his humor is on display. Just the brass it takes to record this song.
Yes.
Something that should have been such a black eye for you in the world's perception of you.
Yeah.
You ripped off He's So Fine, really? And he turns it into this comic piece with a great video to it. Again, the musicianship is superb. It's a nice, catchy tune. Very self-aware, tongue-in-cheek. So I thought that was wow, you're so self-aware to put this out there. You should let us in on the joke, and you're turning it into a joke. And then Cracker Box Palace, another fun song, even without the music video. It just puts a smile on my face every time I hear it, I have to say. What's interesting about that song, that album, is he's got another Smokey tribute in 2 consecutive albums, which is nice.
I like that.
I think that he himself rated Learning How to Love You as his best love song since Something, and I have to agree. That's exquisite to me. It's one of the best things he ever did in terms of a straight-up love song. Maybe there's a bit of, could be about God as much as a woman, but I don't know. I just love it for its vibe and for that wonderful, what he called the yellow guitar solo, because it was jaundiced when he played it.
Yes. Well, I mean, he was in a very happy place. Olivia was 100% in his life now. There's hints of it on the Extra Texture album, but he's happy to have her in his music videos. She's there in Cracker Box Palace. Patty's a thing of the past.
Yeah.
He's hoping to have children with Olivia. He's in a very, very sunny place. So I can see why that emotion bristles out and why he's so proud of these songs. And he wasn't emotionally stunted as he might have been 2 or 3 years earlier.
Yeah. And as you described this happy vibe, it reminds me of the gatefold picture of him with his dad.
Yes, exactly. I mean, and 33 and a Third has its moments. This song is a masterpiece. There's no doubt about it. But I don't think it hinges together as well as some of the other albums. But I would say it's better than the Drek he released in the 1980s. Most of the stuff he released in the 80s was very poor.
Ooh, okay.
I know.
That's a conversation in itself.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that because it took me forever to get into Gone Troppo. I think I was put off by Wake Up My Love because that synth being so in your face, and it's like, God, is this not a blatant attempt to be commercial or what? And I know there's people that like that song, and I guess that's all right. But it took me a while to actually listen to the whole rest of the album. And there's definitely some great stuff in there. There's That's the Way It Goes, and I like his dusting off of Circles and bringing that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. No, I think Gone Troppo is probably the best. I mean, you're talking about over-commercialization. You only have to listen to the production on Cloud9 to think that he's gone too far in that direction.
Yeah.
And Somewhere in England was plagued with problems. His original track listing was rejected, and then he re-recorded some of it after John Lennon's death. So it's a schizophrenic album. He probably should have just scrapped the album altogether and just started all over again and written an album post John Lennon's death. But he didn't choose to go down that road.
That's an interesting one because I thought that having done the self-titled album in 79, he's got a very commercial hit single off of that, and another sequel song in the tradition of this guitar, he does Here Comes the Moon on there.
Yes.
He's got a very on-holiday vibe to it.
Yes.
He's relaxed, he's happy, he's a new dad. So in a way, it's his double fantasy.
Yes.
It's his domestic, embracing the sort of McCartney ethos that he'd been doing too much criticism for a lot of his career.
Yeah.
Here's George doing it, and it's cool, and it's commercial, and impeccably produced.
Yeah.
But it felt to me that Somewhere in England was a bit more downbeat.
Yes.
And we eventually got to hear it after John was killed, so of course we were all downbeat. But even prior to, a song like Writings on the Wall, again, it's one of these sermon modes, but very prescient in that loss of friends verse in there. Shot away. It's like, oh my God, it'd be chills when I heard that. But what I always found the most curious thing about that, and I was aware because I was a teenager working at a record store. We used to get the bulletins from the record companies of upcoming releases. And I do remember, I wish I'd saved it, getting one from Warner Brothers with the original artwork and announcing that as like an October release or something like that. And it was the original draft with that aerial shot of England at George's face imposed onto it. And when eventually the album came out, the material that got dropped, the 4 songs, became bootlegged. I couldn't believe that these were the songs that were judged to be inferior. Top of the list being Flying Hour, which is as commercial as anything. How was that decision made? It's insane to me.
I can't comment. I think the original track listing is better than the reproduced, than the one that the studio execs went with. So, yeah, I don't know what they were thinking. But you could pinpoint to nearly anything. Blade Runner is my favorite film. I don't know what the hell they were thinking putting over a lazy voiceover over those images when they're so clear what everything was about anyway.
Yeah.
I guess from their point of view, they have to think, is it immediate? Is it... Executives are human like the rest of us. I mean, they make mistakes.
Well, I think they were looking for a My Sweet Lord and not hearing it. Yeah. But that was, I thought, a track that was very much in step with the times. I mean, certainly Winwood took that sound and had a great hit with it the following year with Ark of the Diver.
Yes.
Sat Singing is a lovely song. I'd rate that in my personal top 10 of his.
Yes. Yeah, no, the album definitely has its moments and definitely has its flair. But because it was 2 albums being stitched together as one, it does have that schizophrenic feel to it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, that's the big issue I have. But I don't disdain it the way I disdain the Cloud 9 album.
There's plenty of people listening to this thinking, how could he hate Cloud 9? That's the best thing George ever did.
I can tell you that I think the worst thing any Beatle ever did is Got My Mind Set on You. I think it's awful. And yes, I think it's worse than, say, some of Ringo's 70s disco records.
How about Spies Like Us?
That might come second.
There you go.
Yeah, okay. No, I the drum sound, the La La Bamba kind of dance routines, why not just stick to the original? The original is fantastic. It's jazzy, it's up, it's da-da-da-da-da-da, bum-bum, ba-da-bum. There's a lot of vibrato there, and it's flighty, it's great fun. And then they go for a La Bamba knockoff. No thanks.
I remember my reaction at the time thinking, that's not George. And it was just so different from everything. It just really popped on the radio.
Yeah.
And I guess my attitude became, if I try to take a step back and listen to it objectively, it's not my favorite George song, not by a long shot. But I guess I was happy that he got some kind of commercial validation that people who had long dead and buried him was like, oh, I like this song. So I guess to my head, it served a purpose that it gave George a little love at the time when the world wasn't giving him a whole lot. And that was good enough for me. If the idiots want to latch onto this, then they can have it. You know, us true fans know what's what.
Yes, I had a similar reaction to Dance Tonight when that came out in 2007, because because there was this advert of released by Apple featuring an animation of McCartney, and I think the song is trite as hell, but at least, it got people, got introduced itself to a new generation of fans, and that cheered me up.
Yeah. You can make things work for you when you've got that hook to latch onto. It's like, okay, it's not my cup of tea at all, but if it gets him some love, that's all right.
Yeah, exactly. Or that song he did with Rihanna. I mean, I would never listen to it, but at least it reintroduced him to a generation of fans younger than me.
Yeah. I mean, when you go back to like "The Girl Is Mine" or "Say, Say, Say" and that stuff, and I'm thinking, he doesn't need to do this. Why is he doing this?
Yeah.
This is awful, and I will stand by that to this day. I hated it then. I hate it now.
"The Girl Is Mine" is one of the worst records ever committed. But I think it helped McCartney. You do realize I sang on one of the greatest selling albums of all time, and it wasn't just Sgt. Pepper.
And it opened the door to Michael taking control of his publishing. So I think he's got a lot to beat himself up over.
Yes.
That momentary lapse of reason.
Yes. Which is a shame, because the best thing they did together was on the Off the Wall album, because that version of Girlfriend is outstanding.
Oh, yeah. I forget about that one.
Yeah, okay. Not a ringing endorsement. Okay.
No. Has anybody else covered I'm Carrying?
I don't know. And George loved that song. That was the song he highlighted from the London. Like he said, that was the song that he loved from that album. I don't know why. No.
Wouldn't that have been interesting for George to do his version of that?
Oh, well, we have AI. He could do it.
That's true. Oh, boy. Now that door's been opened.
I heard an AI version of George singing Friends to Go from the Chaos and Creation. It was scary how close to George Harrison it was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's one that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, it was pretty weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we haven't really talked about Electronic Sound or Wonderwall. What are your thoughts on those releases?
I'm not too keen on the Electronic Sound, but the Wonderwall album is outstanding.
Yeah.
In some ways, I think it's the ultimate insult that the worst thing Oasis ever recorded, this like derivative acoustic Beatles squawker, was named after this great exhibition of world music. I don't think George Harrison was too flattered by the.
Does it make it work for you to think that they might have turned people on to discovering that album?
I don't think anybody discovered the album because of it, unfortunately. I mean, even though Noel Gallagher, to his credit, did say in several interviews that he got the name from that album.
Well, that's nice of him.
Yeah, I think it's an outstanding album. I can play it in the background, even though he didn't play on very much of it, did he?
No. And I thought it was interesting that the track he cut with Peter Tork is not on it.
Is he? Is he on the track he did with that Ringo appeared on?
I don't know. The one that Ringo played on, is it Skiing? The one with Clapton?
It's the one that goes...
Oh, yeah. No, I think Tork just played banjo, and I don't think it's on that.
Yeah.
But I know it's in the film.
I've seen the film. The film is quite... Do not waste your time on that movie. It is quite literally one dreadful exercise.
I watched it all the way through once, and that was a slog.
Yeah. I don't know which one is worse, Broad Street or the Wonderwall movie.
Oh, dear. Yeah, for different reasons.
Yes.
Yeah. But in the first place, it's magnificent.
Yes. There's a lot of interesting stuff, and he was flowering, and it's pretty telling that he was the first one to really embrace a solo album.
Yeah.
I don't think we can count Family Way as a solo album.
No. My understanding is that was George Martin doing the heavy lifting on that one.
I think he literally had to pull Paul McCartney out of bed one day to record just like a teensy bit of music.
That's exactly right. That's the story I've heard. That just, come up with something. I need a motif. I need a theme. Yeah, something like that.
I don't know if George Harrison wanted to leave the Beatles, but judging by Wonderwall and Electronic Sound, he would have kept busy outside of the orbit. And I think we would have had All Things Must Pass in some form or another. It's even in that Get Back series where he says to John Lennon, I'm going to record my own solo album. I've got enough songs piling up. I can't wait anymore. And John's like, great, yeah, do it.
Yeah. I always wondered why he didn't, if it was just insecurity, because it seems like he had a lot of massive insecurity about his own material, and certainly being in that environment didn't help.
I think you're onto something there. I interviewed Jack Knife Lee, who produced an album with Cathal Coughlan, an Irish songwriter who very sadly died last year, and he said something similar, that he just feels like George Harrison's confidence had hit a bit of a low, especially in '69, when Lennon and McCartney are focusing on material they haven't really looked at in years, and they're not giving stuff like Isn't It a Pity the Time of Day? Right.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Electronic Sound, I have to say, that's something that, again, it's like the equivalent of the Wonderwall film. You listen to it once, that's great, just to say you did it.
Yeah.
I guess he was really trying to fulfill the brief of Zapple of throwaway music. There it is.
Well, I like to see it as like the practice for the Abbey Road album, because he does use the synthesizer beautifully on that album, so maybe this was the workout sessions he needed.
Yeah, and maybe he just felt he needed to contribute something to this label, lest it become John and Yoko's experimental outlet for everything they had going on at the time. But
probably, yeah.
I guess Bernie Krause was the one that was really miffed at the appropriation of his work in L.A. being issued that way.
Yeah. Didn't he say that about avant-garde music was avant-garde a clue?
He did.
Yeah.
And he said something like, I've suffered for my art, now it's your turn.
Yes. That's one Neil Innes's. Yes, that was a good joke. Yeah.
So, to anybody that hasn't really dug into the catalog of George's, we'll focus on the 70s and save Cloud 9 and Tropo for another conversation, but what would you say, apart from All Things Must Pass, is the most top-of-the-list overlooked gem they should explore?
I think Extra Texture. I mean, as we've said, it's got great soul, great guitar playing. I think George novices should put off Living in the Material World for a while, because it's so stripped back and acoustic based, unless that is your particular taste. I think Extra Texture is very up, it's very down, it's got a lot of color. The George Harrison album too, it's got hits like Blow Away, and it's got Your Love Is Forever. Your Love Is Forever is a fantastic tune. I don't know why that doesn't make any like top 10 lists.
Yeah, it's interesting that had a follow-up single issued, Love Comes to Everyone, that just completely died in the marketplace. And it's a fine enough song and a great album opener that Clapton ended up recording it himself. I think, out of belief in it. But
Yes.
I don't know if this purely falls on George's shoulders as not pushing himself, not playing rock star enough to crank out another video, do some interviews, do something. It just didn't happen.
I think there's something to that, that he wasn't willing to do the press. Kevin Rowland with Dexys suffered something similar with the Don't Stand Me Down album, when he didn't want to do a lot of press for that. It's the best Dexys album, but it died a death because nobody heard it.
Yeah, that's crazy. That can happen.
Yeah, that can happen. I also think the Dark Horse album is worth exploring, as long as you're accepting of that the voice isn't up to the usual standard, even though he'd never had a great voice.
It's a blood on the tracks, walls and bridges.
Yes.
For if that angle works for you, listen to it with those ears.
Yes, it's a divorce album. It's a...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I maybe listen to it in the summertime, not in the wintertime. I suppose winters here in Dublin can be quite, wet and dark, and
have some daylight around you.
Yeah, same with Glasgow. I lived in Glasgow for a year. Winters are tough there.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Living in the Material World, I always thought sonically it was wonderful, and the acoustic vibe to it. There's some great playing on there.
Yes.
Give Me Love is a superb song, as you noted.
His best song.
Yeah. And I think he really challenges himself as a singer throughout that album, going for some Orbison-type reaching of notes.
Yeah.
Maybe if that's your cup of tea, great, cut him some slack. But it is an interesting work post-Spectre of him sort of managing his own sound in that genre as a rock album. So, yeah. It's a lovely thing. I wouldn't say it if you're looking for something super commercial. It's probably not that, but it's definitely got its moments. Don't Let Me Wait Too Long was the single that wasn't, and I'm not sure what happened there. I guess Apple had earmarked it as a follow-up release to Give Me Love, and it didn't happen. But it was too bad he didn't play that live either. That would have been a nice one.
Or The Light That Has Lighted the World. I mean, that could have been a hit.
Yes.
Yes. Such a lovely melody and such lovely slide guitar playing.
Oh, definitely. There's so many great moments on there. It's funny that Andy Williams, of all people, covered That Is All.
Did he?
Like it's going to be this MOR standard. Yeah, he did it on the Solitaire album that came out that year.
Yeah.
Where he's trying to do more contemporary stuff.
Yeah. Well, Bowie covered Try Some Buy Some.
That's right.
That was a very peculiar cover. When I tried some, man, I bought some. Yeah.
That struck me as pretty interesting because Ronnie apparently didn't care for it.
Yeah.
And there was other stuff they tracked that could have gone out there and been more commercial.
Yeah.
Like Laddie Daddy Day and apparently early Stab at You. Mm. And I don't know if she tracked the one that Ringo ended up doing that George threatened to sue him over.
I know.
Whenever he sung a song.
Yeah. Why did he threaten to sue him over that? I mean, it's not that bad a version.
No, I mean, that gives people the wrong idea. Like, it was a travesty. It's not.
It really is.
The thing I wondered was, did he have an issue with Lon Von Eaton playing a George-style solo in it, basically doing an impersonation of him, that people would think it was him? I don't know.
Maybe. At least Ringo and George were good enough to joke about it live on TV.
Yes.
The last time George was angry at me, he said he was trying to sue me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all right, George. I'll always love you. That kind of thing.
He was cross. Yeah.
Well, when you consider that when Paul enters legal action, he won't appear at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is a bit thin-skinned.
Yeah. Yeah, that didn't serve anybody well that day.
Maybe.
But George got that nice line off about, it's a shame Paul's not here because he had the speech in his pocket.
Yes, that was a great... Or Yoko saying, John would have been here. John loved the Beatles. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
You can see it on YouTube what she says.
We'll phone you.
Yeah, lots of great guitar on the Living in Material World album. I mean, the title track is outstanding.
Oh, yeah. It's funny that wasn't even in the film with the same name.
That is a bit strange.
Yeah. But it's a great track.
I have some issues with that movie, and I'm a massive Scorsese guy. Last Temptation is one of my favorite movies of all time. The Irishman, for all its technical faults, was a great piece of art.
Mm-hmm.
Scorsese, he has a vision of George. He wasn't willing to show the darker side of George, or the grumpier side of George, or the more difficult side of George.
Mm-hmm.
That would have added some power to the documentary.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. It was a little bit slick, and maybe that was the trade-off for access to people in Olivia, the Harrison estate. I was disappointed that it didn't explore his music deeper, but I guess that wasn't what he was going for, and therefore it leaves it wide open for anybody, once they've read your book, to do some exploring. I would like to see a nice documentary made. People who contributed to those albums are dying off. It'd be nice to get something definitive done to give some insights into that stuff.
Yes, I mean, there was a very good documentary about the Plastic Ono Band album, and both Ringo and Chris Vorman appeared in it.
Oh, yeah. That was superb.
Yeah.
And Imagine's been covered to death. I mean, someday it'd be nice to have a Walls and Bridges one, but I'm not going to hold my breath.
Yeah, that's actually my favorite John Lennon album. I'm in a minority there.
Hear, hear.
Thank you. Okay.
Have you seen the May Pang film yet?
I haven't. I need to.
I think it's coming to the UK in the fall.
Yeah.
I did get to see her when she passed through town.
Nice.
It was superb. It was really, really well done. And I have no complaints about it. I hope that anybody that has heard her on this show or seen any of the other talks she's done or read her books gets to see it, because it's really good.
I'd love to see it. Once it gets a general release, I'll be the first one there.
Yeah. I mean, in a perfect world, it would tie to a remastered deluxe edition of Walls and Bridges, but that's not going to happen.
Do you have any idea why Lennon knocked the record? He seemed a little embarrassed by it.
What do you mean, when he was sitting next to Yoko Ono?
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
Hadn't thought of
A
that.
semi-sick craftsman.
Okay, I didn't put that together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, he was disowning everything that happened during that period, unfortunately.
That is a massive shame.
Yeah.
Maybe had he lived, he would have re-embraced the album.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
I would hope so. But then he's the guy that criticized Andrew Bird Can Sing and
I know.
all these other Beatles songs that we revere.
Andrew Bird Can Sing is effectively the Smiths, and that's the first Smiths single. It's Johnny Marr.
There you go.
I can just imagine Morrissey singing that.
Yeah. And Johnny Marr playing that.
Yeah, I mean, and the late Andy Rourke, it's a very Andrew Rourke bass line.
Yeah, very orchestrated. So what do you think? We cover the subject such as it is?
Yes, thank you again. I might as well say while on air, I've been a big fan of Something About the Beatles for years. I interviewed the guy from the Corgis, and I mentioned that you guys used the track, and he seemed quite flattered.
Yeah, I'd reached out to him when the show started, and I made that contact, and there was never any follow-up. So apparently they liked it enough to let us do it without stopping me. So I'd love to have him on the show someday. That would Andy Cresswell Davis.
Yeah, I'd definitely listen to that.
He played on Imagine.
Yes.
Something About the Beatles. Created and hosted by Robert Rodriguez. Executive producer Rick Way. Title song by the Corgis.